Hello, thank you for having me at the Better City and Smarter Life Forum at the KAIST Civil Week. My name is Sofia Dermisi. I'm a professor in real estate and a professor in urban design and planning at the College Built Environments at the University of Washington. I'm going to be talking today about Chicago through time, from the fire of 1871 to a current smart and future hyper-connected city. Just some kind of general information overview about Chicago and some trends. These are the most recent trends in terms of the composition of the population currently, in terms of how many are foreign-born, distribution, racial distribution. So you see that it's very diverse in terms of the racial distribution, as well as the employment by the various industries in the area. Just starting in terms of how Chicago began, basically, this is a picture of the Chicago River back in 1820. Initial settlers started locating there, and the city started slowly evolving through time. And you see how it actually increased in size from 1854 and kind of much further down in time. Some benchmarks that I'm going to be going over regarding the city of Chicago. It was founded in 1833. It was incorporated in 1837. Major kind of benchmark is also the railroad, which was established in 1838, and that made it a really part of the crossroads of kind of the rail traffic throughout the U.S. Also, the Illinois and Michigan Canal was completed in 1848. So those are some significant kind of benchmarks for the area. Another significant benchmark that changed basically how the city is structured up to today is basically the big Chicago fire of 1871. But before continuing into that, this is the Chicago flag. And there is basically a reason why the flag is the way it is. The original flag had two stars, and it was adopted in 1917. The two wide stripes represent the north and west and also south sides of the city. The two blue stripes symbolize Lake Michigan, plus the north branch of the Chicago River and south branch of the Chicago River, plus the Great Canal. The stars also have a meaning. The first star is the Fort Dearborn, which was one of the first establishments. The second star is the Great Chicago Fire of 1871. The third star represents the word Columbian Exposition of 1893, which we're going to be talking about. And the fourth one, the Century of Progress and Exposition of 1933. So this gives you kind of a context regarding Chicago. So what happened with the Chicago fire? Again, some background. It was a very warm summer, and beyond kind of being very warm, the other major issue for the city was the sidewalks are all wood. So that created a huge fire hazard. At least 300 people died. More than 100,000 people were homeless. About 18,000 buildings were fully or partially destroyed. And you see here in the image the extent of which the downtown area of Chicago, this is kind of the main downtown area of Chicago. This is the area known as the Loop, and this is the Streeterville area, were basically fully engulfed with several buildings being demolished. About 200 million worth of property was destroyed, and nothing remained from the central business district. So this is kind of really important. This gives you an idea of the before and after of some of the structures. Some of these structures, like the Palmer House, were eventually redeveloped, but some of the other structures never got rebuilt at their original kind of way. These are some additional photos of the fire and kind of the aftermath of the fire in some of the main prominent streets of the downtown Chicago area that show basically the destruction that took place in the area. In terms of the challenges, challenges after the fire, obviously increasing rents, because if you're losing all these structures, basically there's going to be price appreciation in the surrounding area. Low wages due to inflow of workers that were rebuilding the city. Rapid rebuilding led to multiple injuries and deaths because some of these people were not very knowledgeable. Low income people created various unrests and panic during kind of the aftermath of the fire. And there was another fire in 1874, which destroyed about 50 acres and about 800 buildings downtown. And that caused insurance pressures for the city on fireproofing buildings with new building codes. So that was another kind of key element in aftermath of the fire. In 1885, the first skyscraper in the world was constructed in the Loop in the Chicago area. So this is another significant milestone. So before the 1880s, we had basically buildings that were 7 stories tall. The main reason for this is that these were the number of stories that someone can walk easily. The construction techniques, stone or brick with thick walls to hold structures. So those were the key issues that buildings were not kind of developed beyond 7 floors. What changed in the 1880s? We started having steel framing, which allowed for thinner walls and lighter weight construction. Use of steel process, improved techniques in the foundation of construction, improved safety and technology, electrical motors and elevators. So we had the first elevator in Chicago, the Otis elevator in 1853. Window openings became larger because the walls did not need to provide support. So that allowed a lot of the sun to come in much further in the core of the buildings. And the continuous development of construction techniques led to the entire exteriors to be of glass and terracotta and curtain walls. So these were significant innovations that actually led to major developments in the area. Where was the term skyscraper used for the first time? In 1888 for the description of the home insurance building in Chicago, which is the building in the picture, and other tall structures around the city. The US had several 22-story buildings by mid-1890s, and the promotional value fueled more significant increases by early 20th century. So what happened to Chicago after the Great Fire of 1871 through the 1900s? We have significant developments, technology, innovation, and building foundation allowed for vertical development. Chicago has a soft soil, and the bedrock is 125 feet below grade. So that's something to keep in mind. A group of businessmen also hired a young architect called Jenney and Burnham, Roots and Sullivan to build multiple downtown commercial buildings, and and a number of these buildings are actually still standing in the downtown area. They designed several of them, and one of the main kind of like known buildings is the Chicago School of Architecture. So that gives you an idea of the significant innovations. In terms of where the trends are for the skyscrapers in Chicago, this kind of gives you an overview. The most recent skyscraper that was completed in 2020. Basically, this is in the Chicago River, the Wanda Vista Tower, which is basically 3 towers. This is the latest tower that was built. Even though it's one of the tallest building, still the Willis Tower remains the tallest building in Chicago. Some general trends, just to give you an idea of where, what type of skyscrapers are actually built throughout the world. You see here kind of the trends. The Burj Khalifa remains the tallest building around the world. The majority of the tallest skyscrapers are located in China versus any other country because of building codes, financial issues, and also availability of land compared to sites that are very scarce, basically in downtown areas across the US. So moving along in terms of the timeline in Chicago, in 1893, we had another major event, which actually led to one of the stars on the flag, which is called the Chicago World Columbian Exposition. So that's another key point. This was to celebrate the 400 years anniversary for Columbus discovering America. And from this map, I highlight this building because this is the only building that is still remaining today. Just to give you an idea, the exposition occupied about 630 acres in the Jackson Park area of Chicago, and it was 7 miles. There were 14 main buildings, and you see them highlighted here in kind of like a grayish color. And with a total floor space of about 63 million square feet, most of them were Beaux-Arts style buildings. By 1891, over 40,000 workers worked on the site, with the cost for that time at 28 million. There were, in terms of number of visitors, over 27.5 million, and the admission was at 50 cents. So the value was really small because the idea was to promote all these new structures, promote the electricity. All these buildings had electricity, so they had a lot of innovations that were showcasing. This is another map of the area. This is Medway. This is a park area over here, and it shows this is from that time. It actually provides additional details of the various buildings. On this side now is what is existing today. All this area is basically park, with the exception of this building here, which is the Museum of Science and Industry, as you can see it, also as a blow up over here. Another innovation in 1897, we have the elevated line, which was completed in the downtown area, which is called the Loop, because actually the L, as it's called, goes around the downtown area. This is the Loop, and that's why the train is elevated in this area, and the train goes around over here, and that's why it's called the Loop. So that's another significant technology innovation that happened at that time. And then you see how the system actually evolved through time. It started initially in the center of the city, and kind of like it went through kind of like this, the more kind of fringes of the downtown, and eventually this is the current system as it is today, and you see how significant it has expanded since its initial kind of development. Another important kind of like benchmark that happened is in 1899, the construction of the 60-mile underground tunnel system. So that was really important because what that actually did was it transferred coal and other, basically the majority of it was coal to the various buildings underground. So you had all this underground system, transportation system among buildings. And here you see basically how the system was at the time. You see all these kind of small kind of like systems where you had the transportation of coal and other kind of elements through the buildings. All these tunnels, especially in this area where we have a lot of prominent skyscrapers, were sealed off for security reasons, especially after 9/11. So all these tunnels, especially in the area close to very prominent buildings, are no longer accessible as they were before. Another benchmark in the history of Chicago is the 1909 Burnham Plan of Chicago. And this is a significant contribution and a lot of elements at the time. And I'm going to provide some background regarding Burnham here. A lot of the elements were not materialized at that time. They were not as appreciated, but through time, a lot of architects and a lot of kind of city planners and also mayors have tried to bring back some of the elements that the original Burnham plan had regarding public spaces that are fully utilized, especially these days with a lot of different outdoors functions. So some of the buildings that actually were built by Burnham and other architects and his teams. I'm just going to show you some pictures. These buildings exist even today. So for those that appreciate architecture and that kind of like Beaux-Arts architecture, it's really important to highlight the importance of the historical buildings and that they are maintained in cities like Chicago, unlike other cities where they're actually demolished. And here you see the interior of these buildings, the atriums that they had. And the main idea was to invite as much possible as light. You see the very large windows that they have compared to the buildings that were built in the 60s. This is another building. It's actually a hotel in downtown Chicago, and it is restored in its original form, and it's fully utilized as a hotel today. And these are some interior pictures. So you see the historical aspect is not only maintained from the exterior of the building, but it's also maintained in the interior that has like amazing facades. And one more building that kind of like highlights all this idea of inviting the light even in the core of the building. So the building has a skyline above here, and that allows basically the light to penetrate. This is the lobby level. It allows the light to penetrate through the floors down to the lobby, even though this building is a high-rise building in the downtown area. This is Michigan Avenue. A couple of things regarding Burnham and where he got his inspiration about the development of kind of the new plan of both kind of San Francisco and Washington, and eventually Chicago. The main idea was Paris, the boulevards, and all the systems of roads. Those were in how the various systems of roads can lead to public spaces. Those were critical elements in terms of the of his development of the Burnham plan for Chicago. Some of the key elements before the plan, Chicago had about 6 miles of lakefront parks. Today it has 26. And some of these elements through time have been applied, even though Burnham was not able to see a lot of the applications of his plan through the decades. Actually, there have been various steps done and various strategies applied from his original plan. Some highlights of the downtown proposal and what we have today, because it's important to see how his vision has been materialized today. He envisioned a double deck ring road. And the main reason was that he wanted the traffic, kind of the area to be, the upper levels to be more pedestrian friendly and kind of the lower level to be focused on transporting material to the various buildings. So this was materialized through Wacker Drive in the downtown area. So anyone who has visited Chicago, you know that you have the upper Wacker Drive and the lower Wacker Drive, and that was kind of the idea behind the lower Wacker Drive. On the north, basically, Beaux-Arts Bridge was proposed to link the loop with the Gold Coast, and that's these days the North Michigan Avenue Bridge, which is a very prominent bridge. And that idea was connectivity. How do you achieve the connectivity and the unrestricted flow of goods and also people? The other thing was on the east side, a pier, which would extend towards Lake Michigan, and these days is basically Navy Pier. So again, for anyone that visited can actually see that vision actually materialize. Something that did not materialize was on the west, City Hall was proposed as a massive civic center, which you actually see about here. This never actually occurred. On the south side, the plan strengthened the previously crooked Chicago River and kind of the river city. And these days, all this has been actually significantly improved. These are the various kind of areas that kind of were the focus of the Burnham plan. And Navy Pier is kind of here. So this actually happened, the connectivity between the loop and also the kind of the northern part of the city has happened. This is the Civic Center, which never materialized, but now it's kind of the City Hall. So some of the aspects have been actually taking place. These are some key elements of the Burnham plan, just to give you an idea of what it actually entailed. It focused a lot of on transportation and connectivity of the various areas. The next kind of benchmark is between the 1940s and 60s, where Chicago actually saw the rise of a lot of housing, of kind of public housing projects. At the same time, those projects became blighted because of the way that they were constructed. Just to give you an idea, these are some, these are some housing projects that are highlighted. A number of them have been demolished. CHA, which is the Chicago Housing Authority, was created in 1937. It provided affordable housing for low-income individuals in the Chicago area. Four projects opened in 1938. They housed about 4,000 families. World War II, the CHA focused on war workers, and they developed more than 2,000 units. After World War II in 1949, Congress passed the Housing Act, which provided substantial funding for public housing. And that's where you have a lot of housing actually being built to facilitate basically all these workers. So you had a significant boom in terms of housing units, affordable housing units in the area. However, this has kind of led to a lot of problems, and that's why you see in a lot of cases, those kind of projects, as they're called, basically in the 1960s and kind of like afterwards, they became very blighted in terms of the various areas. In 1966, the CHA was ordered by the federal judge to build more scattered site housing beyond the African-American neighborhoods. There was a lot of pushback by certain aldermen in certain areas where they didn't want public housing in those areas. And there has been a lot of turmoil basically within the Chicago Housing Authority. In 1996, the situation in the Chicago Housing Authority became so bad that the Department of Housing and Urban Development took control of it. because there was a lot of mismanagement and poor performance, and there was a lot of kind of advocacy about demolishing a lot of the failed high-rise projects. And this gives you an idea. These are the type of high-rise projects that were developed. Cabrini Green, there are a lot of cases about Cabrini Green in the high-rise buildings, which some of them were eventually demolished. But just to give you an idea of how these affordable housing units were, and just kind of like a quick overview. What does a new Chicago public housing look like? It's more integrated in the various communities, and you see the difference between the before and kind of after. Like this is kind of a typical project site, but now the affordable housing projects look something like this. They're less dense, they're more integrated in the various communities. Another milestone is actually the urban transformation of the downtown that happened in the 1990s. You have the Chicago River that is becoming more accessible in kind of a variety of ways. Just to give you an idea, you have Grant Park. This is kind of the landscape in the 1950s. So this goes back to the Burnham plan about accessibility and making the lakefront accessible to people, creating the parks along the lakefront. So that goes back to kind of that plan and what the vision was in the past and how it materialized actually now. And you see kind of current pictures of how Grant Park looks like. The other aspect is Millennium Park. Millennium Park is a bit north of the Grant Park. It's the newer park. The innovative thing is basically underneath Millennium Park and kind of above, initially, you basically have the rail system that goes south to Indiana and kind of neighboring states. So all the trains, this is the Chicago River over here. This is the lake. And all these are basically the initial kind of train, the rail that actually was facilitating kind of commerce with the river. All this was eventually developed. So there are air rides and there are buildings above that. You see here, this is the Aon Center. This is the Prudential Center. Everything was kind of like covered. You still have the train stations underneath, and you still have the train stations underneath today, but all this area eventually became a park, and we're going to see it kind of later on. This is kind of another view of the Millennium Park as it went through time, the evolution. These are the rail yards that existed there, huge parking lots to facilitate. This is the Prudential building. There was nothing developed over here in the 1960s. This is 1964, and how it looked. 1968. And this is how it looks today. There's a lot of development. This is Lakeshore Drive, a famous kind of like road along the river. And this shows you Google Earth is really amazing because it provides a good overview of kind of the same area over time. So you see this evolving from 2000, 2002. You see the Millennium Park starting to take shape. This is 2004. Millennium Park is kind of like done, and now you start seeing kind of development. Over here you have residential properties. You also have some office buildings that were developed. And this is a picture of today. You're going to see a difference. Before you had some tennis courts, but after the former mayor's wife kind of death, this is called the Maggie Daley Park now, which is basically for children. So a new park was developed after the passing of the former mayor's wife. Some of the other aspects, how do you create community? So going back to the Burnham vision of integrating and providing kind of a gathering place for people. This is a famous bean or a cloud gate. The official name is Cloud Gate, but a lot of people call it bin, which is in the Millennium Park. This is how the park looks from above. This is the cloud gate. And this is basically an open air concert area. This is called the Pritzker Pavilion. The architect was Frank Gehry. The acoustics are just stunning in that area because you have basically all this is kind of the kind of the screen is over here and the musicians are here. Or the stage is over here, but then you have speakers kind of like all these area has basically above ground speakers. And this is during kind of a variety of events and how it actually looks. So where are we going now? Cities and how they focus on technology. There are various aspects that are adopted by cities in terms of technology. Internet of Things, it's something important. Chicago has been innovating in a variety of ways, from smart grid system, so buildings, both residential and commercial, downtown buildings and other buildings are part of the smart grid system. There's also lighting, LED lighting. The street lights are there, the light bulbs are being changed, but there are a number of things that are kind of evolving in terms of conveying information and continuously updating information, so people are informed and are interconnected and can make kind of informed decisions. Where are we going? To a hyper-connected city. And Chicago has made a couple of steps. This is some research of about 100 cities around the world in terms of creating a hyper-connected city index. And this index is based on kind of 4 aspects: on technology, data analytics, cyber, and also connectivity of citizens. So these are kind of like critical aspects, and some cities might have some of these elements far more than other cities. And in this example, you can actually see that in terms of technology, Chicago is ranked among kind of the cities that are assessed at 8, but there's not a lot of information regarding data analytics and how it's shared, or also the other factors. So it's not kind of ranked in some of the areas. Where are we going, where the future is, and how we're envisioning the hyper-connected city? That's kind of a combination of things. Obviously, there needs to be connectivity among the various resources, but infrastructure is going to be interconnected, payment or financial system, transportation. You're looking at smart systems where the train kind of like comes into a stop, and the bus pulls up, so people are not going to wait in order to board a bus. So that creates a lot of efficiency. So the whole system becomes efficient. Physical and digital security, especially now that there's a lot of data available out there, that becomes a critical issue, especially with hacking. So it's really important to have that security, especially if you have the interconnected system. Environment and sustainability, like even that example that I just mentioned regarding the train pulling up and then the bus coming in. So you don't have the bus kind of like just waiting there for a long time. So that means that it's far more efficient for everyone. The system moves far faster than before. Public health, public safety and health are kind of intertwined with physical and kind of digital security. Especially what COVID has kind of like highlighted is how important is social distancing, kind of like different aspects. So this is something that, and monitoring. So this is something that is going to become critical. Governance and funding, the way basically payments are done, or the financial system. So interconnectivity between the payments and the financial system, governance and funding. How quickly, if I submit basically my plans for approval, how quickly can I get it done? Do I need to go there physically, or can I just submit it electronically? In some countries, actually, that is taking place. Energy and electricity, if you have a smart grid system, you can have also a demand response system where if I'm not utilizing the full energy that I need, I can actually give it back to the grid. Talent and education are also going to be really critical factors in terms of attracting and kind of like maintaining people in the various areas, as well as kind of schools and kind of other elements. So what else has Chicago been assessed for? In terms of technology, there have been significant steps in terms of making available or creating some interconnectivity. But in some other areas, still Chicago is lagging behind compared to other cities. So this is kind of a snapshot of basically the various areas where Chicago has made some significant kind of like steps, but there's still some additional kind of like effort. Obviously, in a lot of cases, especially regarding cybersecurity, the financial kind of burden is important and significant. So that causes major issues in terms of things moving ahead. The pandemic, the financial crisis before that have not been very kind to a number of cities in terms of allocating some funds in those areas, but hopefully sometime soon, basically, there's going to be additional interest in those areas. So I'm going to leave you with a quote from Daniel Burnham, where even though initially he didn't see some of his objectives materialize, I think it's really important to keep in mind what he said about we should never make little plans because they have no magic to steer man blood, and probably themselves would not be realized. So it's really important to make as kind of like grand plans as we can, because that, eventually those plans might actually materialize. So thank you very much for having me. Please feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions. Thanks.